Hi, welcome to the GLPDC podcast. I'm Milton Dixon, and over here we have William Faith, if I can point in the right direction. Uh, and and we often work with Rhonda Baird. GLPDC is a trio of permaculturists. Um, and we've been getting together and trying to push the edges of what we can do with computers and media and working together. Um, welcome, William. We usually check in, right? So, William, you wanna just do a quick check in?
Yeah, everything's going cool here in Chicago. Weather is really nice. Things are coming along, and the rest of my check-in, I think, kind of folds into our emergent topic here. So over to you for intro.
Oh yeah. The weather's been fabulous here too. Really getting out and enjoy spring. Starting to work in the garden and work with what that will be. And it goes right into the topic today. We we'd like to talk about control and how that relates to permaculture. Does that seem reasonable?
Certainly.
And I think for me maybe this is kind of an un kind of like reading between the lines of everything in permaculture. And I think it gets down to this element of control. And maybe just to I'm just gonna dive off the deep end, William. Like, did did we ask the fruit tree if it wanted to be grafted? It's a totally deep end, right? Like, did you even try? Did you even attempt to? Right? How would we know that we have asked it and that it's understood and tells us back, responds to us in a way? So, and with all this, how do I know that the things that are in my garden, the weeds that I'm pulling, is that okay with them? Like that's and who am I to control this space, right? I know that's where my head's been going. I don't know if you want to jump in for a little bit and.
Absolutely. I look at that in terms of control. I always think, where is it? Who has it? And how does it play out over time? Because in the short term, with your grafting analogy, we might think that in that moment we have control, and because we're doing the grafting, we're grafting this variety onto this tree. However, depending on the amount of diligence we've done, did we pick a variety that's appropriate? If not, if it was wrong, if we picked the wrong climate, or the wrong variety for this climate and grafted it onto a tree, well, control ultimately lies with nature itself, and will exercise that control long term by diminishing or zero yield as a result. So we might think we have it, but it manifests in other ways sometimes, I think. Yeah. And then also, there's nature's design and there's our design, and when those two meet, it can be a really neat, productive kind of thing. But it's when we really start going to this reductive, linear kind of approach, when we don't think in systems, that nature will exercise the ultimate control.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about just like, are we even creating the opportunity to listen to what? Are we interacting, or are we like demanding? Right? And when we demand, we kind of close that possibility of hearing a response, having some sort of feedback, right? We just do this thing, and if it doesn't work, then we do the next thing, right?
To tail in on that, I think that's a good place for the NVC analogy. Is using requests versus demands.
Yeah.
If someone hears something as a request, they're much more likely to want to contribute to your well-being. Whereas if they hear it as a demand, they're far less likely to want to play in. And so I would go so far as to say that if you've done your observation piece really, really well, and you've considered all the points that are possible for you to consider in a design, then at that point you're more making a request of the system by doing these small modifications,
right?
With all due care and caution, as opposed to coming in there brazenly and just beat it to fit, paint it to match kind of approach that we see in a lot of other a lot of like landscape architecture designs and things that are really just designed for aesthetics without any consideration.
Even I would suggest bad permaculture design.
Certainly.
Right. Certainly. That it takes on that mantle of permaculture, but is still missing some key element of awareness and interaction with the landscape, and just trying to like bulldoze this is what needs to happen into existence, and
when hubris and ego come to the front, rather than the humility that any good designer carries.
Yeah, and that's so where do people, what do we do to avoid this control thing, right? I mean, you kind of spoke to it a minute ago, but I'm curious, maybe we should make sure to spell it out.
I think it's a dialogue. In all cases, I think it's a dialogue. Whether it's with the landscape or the stewards of a particular area or a client, if it's a design situation, you get feedback all the time if you're listening. For me, in most immediate sense, there's the design that I was working on in south of France, and that just there was some control exercise there in that I'm not able to continue that design at present owing to trouble on the employment front, and so there's no funding for that project at the moment. So that's kind of cut that off. So that was some control right there that came into the picture. And outside of everyone's immediate sphere of influence, but that's the most immediate feedback in a situation like that. And that's when I say where is it, who has it, and how does it affect you? So identifying that, I think, is central. And that's a lot of designs, I think, come to a grinding halt over those sort of external kinds of control. No. And then there's the kind of control that you have when you're working a design, creating a design. And if you're doing it with the same due diligence and heart that we were talking about, you're taking everything into account, including working with the landscape rather than on the landscape. There's a big key difference there, I think.
Yeah, just sitting down and listening, right? And Mollison's suggestion to wait 1 year before doing anything, which is kind of ridiculous and also kind of genius. That's really the thing, is what's going on here before I start tearing it up. What am I even entering into?
Yep, I can count. I'll say two hands. I can count on two hands how many people I've seen have the luxury of waiting a year, before getting into a design. But if you can, amazing. But
and I mean, I would even say like waiting a year doesn't mean you can't have a garden.
Of course,
waiting a year doesn't mean a lot of things, but for definitely for making big design decisions. Absolutely, you should at least have been in a place a year and have some idea of the full variability that's possible
before you've got major earthworks and buildings and things coming in. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I think this is definitely kind of like I said, reading between the lines of control, and so much of the way that everything else in the world is done is about control and about taking control and pushing out the other voices that maybe dissent. And so that's one of the things that's really attracted me to permaculture.
I think control is just another manifestation of power. And I think power is something that can and should be shared. And so I think the same of control where possible. And to me, that's just a very permaculture attitude toward it, the whole thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, William.
Thank you, Milton.
Yeah, we are 2/3 of GLPDC.
Missing an important third.
Yes, yeah, she should be back next week.
Yep.
And we've got the website down below, glpdc.info, with this crazy scrolling thing. I don't know how I feel about it, but whatever. And then you can see some of our upcoming courses, including the June PDC. And what else is coming up, William? What's our next course?
Rhonda has her Plants and Permaculture course on May 26th coming up. That's going to be a great course. That's going to be out at the old schoolhouse in Hillside, Illinois, just outside Chicago city limits. And then just to tail back in on the online PDC, today's Earth Day. That's today. So there's been a lot of excitement and stuff going on around the Extinction Rebellion protests and all the stuff that's been going on. However, for just the most immediate kind of way to get some of these skills for yourself, as far as take control and learn how to do some earth repair and some community repair, this PDC is definitely about those tools and those strategies. So very much encourage you to sign up. Sliding scale, no one's turned away. Sign up, join us. It's going to be a blast.
Thanks, William. Talk to you next time.
See ya.